Welcome to the Heal Your Hunger Show, where we get to the heart of why you overeat and how to stop. If you struggle with food and weight like I did, welcome home.
Welcome, everybody, to the Heal Your Hunger Show. So happy to have you here. It is a great day to be alive, and I'm going to be talking about my personal experience of grief. I've done another podcast on it, but that was 3 weeks ago. So I'm going to give you an update. Having just lost my man who just meant the world to me, and he was my former husband. He was my mentor. He was my inspiration for the work that I do today. So yeah, I'm going to give you an update on that. But I first want to say, I forget to say this at times, and I'm going to try to get in a better habit of saying that I'm on Instagram with some really helpful posts. If you want inspiration, if you want to have a new perspective on your weight loss journey, on addressing and healing emotional eating, and if you just want to be inspired, jump over to Tricia Nelson _. That's my primary Instagram group or whatever you call it, channel, portal, I don't know, Instagram, something or other. You can tell I'm really good at this. But anyway, my Instagram stuff goes there. Go to Tricia Nelson _ for my videos. We do a lot of reels, and I say we because I have a video gal who puts together. I do lots of my partner, Yurun. I give him my camera, my video camera, my phone, which turns into a video when we press the right button. We take a lot of video of my meal cooking and our time together in the kitchen, and we string them together into some fun videos. So that's my point. Go to Instagram, Tricia Nelson _ to check those out. Also, I am recording this live in the Secret Sauce group. That's on Facebook. Join us for the Secret Sauce to End Emotional Eating. That's where we continue the conversation. I record a lot of my podcasts there. And be there, be square, ask questions, get support. Let it be your first step towards healing emotional eating, because we're having a deeper conversation with Heal Your Hunger and the Secret Sauce group. So I welcome you there. And also, if you haven't figured out if you're an emotional eater or not, like you're like, what's that about? On my website, front and center is a quiz you can take. It's called an emotional eating quiz, and it will tell you literally if you're an emotional eater or a food addict or somewhere in between, and you'll get a personalized score because it's a spectrum. And so find out where you are on that spectrum and then what next steps you can take to heal. It's a free quiz, takes 3 minutes to take, but that's a great place to go to get started on your journey as well. Okay, on with the show. I just want to talk about where I'm at. 3+ weeks ago, I shared about the death of my former husband, Roy Nelson. He died on January 21st, 2024. And oh my God, I miss him. I miss him, and I'm sad. And I'm also going through the emotions real time, which gives me an opportunity to share about how to get through hard things without overeating. And I am so grateful I'm having that experience. I'm so grateful I'm not overeating. So grateful that I am feeling my feelings. And if I had $1 for every time I've heard in the last 6 or 7 years that I've been in my Heal Your Hunger work, my book, my podcast, my programs, talking to women on a daily basis, as I do, if I had $1 for every time somebody said I was doing great until I was doing great until the pandemic, I was doing great until I lost my job, I was doing great until I lost my husband, I was doing great until my kid, had mental illness. Life serves up a lot of pain. Okay, there's no shortage of pain. And I don't know whether I feel it more or I'm more aware, or it's just true that there is more pain in the world right now than ever before. Politically, we're more polarized than ever before. There are wars happening, senseless wars, which I don't know what war isn't senseless truly, but there's a lot of pain. People are going through a lot. There's death, there's sickness, there's mental illness. Life ain't for sissies. Let's be clear. So my little corner of the world is filled with a process of grieving, because the man who inspired my work, Heal Your Hunger, the man who helped me heal from my experience of emotional eating, the man who I hooked my wagon to his wagon many moons ago when I was really young and trying to figure out why I couldn't stop eating, why no matter what program I was in, I'd break out and self-sabotage. The man who figured it out for me and helped me heal, whom I'm so indebted to, he died. He just up and died. And it was sudden. It wasn't expected, although he was winding down. He had different sicknesses, but to put it bluntly, he fell in his kitchen and died. And I found him a couple hours later, which was a bad experience in and of itself. Obviously, it's taken me a while to get that image out of my head. Just so sad. Walking into his place, we lived in the same building. So walking into his place and seeing him gone was really sad. So there's lots that I've been dealing with, obviously. And being in the business of helping people with their emotional selves, I have had plenty of opportunity to practice what I preach. And so I want to share about that here. First of all, just because I just mentioned it, getting that image of him dead on his kitchen, it wasn't his best look. I'm not going to lie. Little sweetheart. Oh my God, it was awful. I put together a service for him with my friends. We held a really lovely service with his son and some Heal Your Hunger coaches who were also mentored by Roy and other people close to us and close to Roy, hosted a service for him. And I put together the bulletin. The church helped with a bulletin. I created this beautiful brochure that people take with them with different Roy-isms is what I call them, different sayings of his. He had some great sayings, and it had a link to a meditation. So I put this bulletin or brochure together, which had his face on it. We had 2 posters, and I have to tell you, these images of him, which were awesome. It was during the time that he was publishing his book, which was Love Notes from Hell, sorry. It's some beautiful headshots. So I had those headshots blown up for the service, but I look at them often, these amazing photos of him, just to get that vision of him in his worst and last moments out of my head, because that was traumatic in and of itself to have that vision. And so I've been trying to look at beautiful photos of him to get to replace that image. And when it's working, the image comes to mind here and there, and I just pray and I close my eyes and I try to switch the image to something else. But I don't have to eat over it. Okay. It's a horrifying image when it comes into my mind, but I don't have to go eat over it. I mean, that's the theme here. In order to heal, I have to feel and deal. And so these are some ways that I'm sharing with you that I'm doing that. So another thing that's helped me is crying. So I am so grateful. I'm not much of a crier these days in my life. I'm not a big crier. I just don't cry a lot. I don't have a need to cry a lot. I feel pretty current with my emotions, so I don't cry a lot. But because I'm experiencing this grief, I do. And it comes on me, this need to cry, this moment of intense pressure that spills over into crying, and it's so healing. So crying is so good, and guess what? I don't hold back those tears. I don't apologize for crying. I don't care where I am when it happens. I just don't care. I learned this when I was going through the grief of my dad passing from cancer, is if I was in the checkout line, when it came on me to cry, I'd cry. Grief is like that. Grief happens on its own timetable. We can't schedule grief. We can't schedule the tears. They just come, and they come when they come. It's a roller coaster ride. It doesn't make sense. I was at a friend's wedding a couple weeks ago, sitting next to my partner, having dinner during the reception part of the wedding, and it showed up. And I needed to cry. And it starts with a really deep sadness. Like I start feeling sad, and then it turns into this pressure, like this sadness that makes me feel depressed immediately. Like it's a depression. It's a depression of feelings of sadness. It gets heavy. It feels heavy. It feels depressive. And then I cry, and it lifts. It just lifts. And I'm so grateful for that. It's amazing that God figured it all out, right? Gave us emotions, gave us tears to relieve pressure from emotions. But if I were eating if I were eating, I'd be stuffing those emotions and then I would get depressed for real. The depression is momentary until I cry. And then there's relief that comes with the crying. It doesn't take away the sadness, but the sadness isn't heavy and depressive anymore. That's how powerful tears are. That's why I don't hold back on them. I cry. When I need to cry, I cry and I boo-hoo, and it's an ugly cry. Roy used to imitate my crying, which was not very nice. He'd imitate me because my crying was ugly. Like I was like, ooh, he'd make this noise. I'm not gonna do it here. But he would imitate my crying at times, and he would do it with kindness. He would say he did it within saying with compassion how he remembered those times when I would feel so sad early on in my recovery process. So he would talk about those times and he imitated my crying. He wasn't making fun of me. But anyway, it wasn't a nice sound. And it's still not a nice sound when I cry. And I cried last night and my partner was sweet and held me. And I don't judge myself when I have feelings. I don't judge myself or apologize when I cry because it's the best thing I can do. It's the healthiest thing I can do. And I know if I don't address the feelings, if I don't deal with the feelings, they'll deal with me because I'll eat to stuff them. That's really the biggest message I have is don't stuff your feelings. Don't stuff your feelings. And I don't care if it's some other kind of feelings over some kind of sadness or some kind of anger or some kind of upset. It doesn't have to be a death. It doesn't have to be grief. But the fact is, crying is natural. Crying is healing and healthy. Let yourself cry. Don't apologize for crying. In our culture, we apologize. I don't even understand that. God gave us tears as part of our healing and as part of our healthy, natural healing. So don't apologize for it. And my experience is so often as emotional eaters, we're so afraid to feel our feelings because it feels like they'll never end. Oh, I don't want to go there. I don't want to get stuck there. I've got a business to run or I've got a family to take care of. My experience right now with the grief I'm going through is I don't have to cry for very long to get the relief. I can cry for 5 minutes and then I just stop crying and then I move on with my day. So it's counterintuitive. We think if we go there, all of a sudden we're going to get stuck there or take us to a point of no return. And that's not true. The quicker we let off that steam, the quicker we have that little valve, that little lever, it allows us to release the tension and the pressure. The quicker we can get up, dust ourselves off, and go on with our day. Okay, so that's been really helpful for me. So I cried at the wedding reception. I sat at my table and I turned to my guy and I told him what I was feeling and I cried and he held me. It's very sweet. Oh my God. I'm very blessed. But he held me and I cried. I put a tissue up to my face. And then somebody who was sitting across from us a little while later, this beautiful woman, Jennifer Joy Jimenez. I'm going to have her on my show soon. But anyway, she just said, hey, I'm giving you a hug across the table because she saw me crying. And it was just such a sweet thing for her to say. And I told her, yeah, I lost my former husband a few weeks ago. So people are compassionate and understanding. They're not going to freak out just because you're crying or having feelings. So that's it. I just went with it. And then it was over. And then I went on with the wedding. Sleep has been disrupted for sure. The first week, it was awful. I couldn't sleep. I'd shoot up in the middle of the night in bed and just start crying. It was awful, but it's gotten easier. Like I said, my former husband lived in my same building. We broke up, but we were still family to each other, and not having him there where I hear his door creaking when he comes and goes, and he's not texting me asking if he can borrow something. We're neighbors. So there's an emptiness there. There's a sadness there. And it's made it hard sometimes to sleep. But that's getting better. Time does heal. It doesn't heal completely, or maybe it takes a lot of time to heal completely. Sometimes I'm disrupted in my sleep, but it's getting easier. It's getting better. And it's so important for me to know that time heals. God heals. We can grieve and the grief will continue to come on its own timetable, but it does get easier. And I think so much of the time when we feel painful feelings, we think that's it. We're going to always feel terrible or it feels like the end of the world. And I haven't had anything really painful for a long time. Since my dad died 23 years ago, I haven't had something that caused me as much grief as I'm experiencing right now, but I'm getting through it. So I'm reminded that time heals. And if we move through it, we can get to the other side of it. Something Roy used to say, used to love to quote Churchill, who said, when you're going through hell, keep going. And it's totally applicable to grief. It feels like hell, but keep going. It's going to get easier. And I know that dealing with a death that's doesn't come from older age, even though Roy died suddenly, he was older, he was 79, he had health challenges, he wasn't aging well, he had a hunch in his back and a host of health challenges. So it's easier in some ways to just tell myself he was going to go at some point. I was going to have to do this at some point. And I understand that grief that comes from losing a child or a spouse or somebody at a younger age, I understand that's a whole nother level of grief. Yeah. So I'm sorry if that's your experience. But the point is, death is part of life. And so I've had to just take a deep breath and be like, okay, this is part of life. I can't avoid it. And I can't erase it by eating. I think so much of the time we eat to numb and erase the reality of what we're going through, but it doesn't really erase it. Obviously, that's why eating is useless. It's so useless because you eat and then you feel sick from eating and you still have the situation. It hasn't been erased by eating. It's just we've had a momentary numbness, a momentary blackout of our reality, and then we have to come right back to our reality. That's really hard. I have a friend recently who is a recovering alcoholic whose wife left him and he drank. He ruined 7 years of sobriety and he drank. And it made me so sad. And then he's just getting sober again, thank God. But his wife still left him. Like they're not getting back together. So now he has to deal with a brand new sobriety and then, which is not easy. And the fact that his wife left him. Whereas if he hadn't drank, he would have just dealt with the fact that his wife left him. And that's how it is when we eat. Alcoholism is very similar to food addiction, right? We eat to escape, but it doesn't change the reality of what we're going through. So the best thing we can do is face the reality, go through the feelings, get support. Oh my gosh, I've had so much support. Together we can do hard things. And so I've been doing hard things with the support of my friends. There's a small group of us who were all mentored by Roy, and we've been supporting each other, and it's been really sweet and supportive, and it's helped me get through it. So I don't do anything alone. My mom has been so good. She's called me to check in on me, and I'm so grateful for that. And my sisters. So I'm going right now in a couple days to be with them in Mexico. And oh, I'm so glad we're having this experience so I can be with my family and get support and comfort from them. It's all about community. Together we can do hard things. So please don't try to go through hard things on your own. There's no need. It's too hard. It's too hard. Get support. There's no shame in reaching out for support and saying, I need help. I can't do this alone. I cannot do this alone. I'm very clear on that. Yeah, so these are some of the experiences I'm having. 3-meal magic all the way. I eat 3 meals with nothing in between most of the time. I'm not perfect at that. I go to my exercise class, my bar class. I meditate. Everything stays the same. My self-care has to be in place. Otherwise, this would be 3 times as hard, and I'd be eating to boot, which would make it 20 times as hard. So I'm very grateful for my self-care. I'm grateful that I laid the groundwork for this experience by doing self-care, by healing my emotional eating, so that when this traumatic thing happens, I'm prepared. I have my self-care in place. And too often, the problem with diets is they don't give you tools for coping with life's problems. They don't give you new tools. So you lean on what you know, which is food. You have to replace that food with new tools so you can get through life without overeating, without wrecking your health. Feel, deal, and heal happens when you're not turning to food. But if you turn to food, you're missing the opportunity to feel, deal, and heal. Yeah, this is what I'm going through. I'm super grateful. Everything I teach in Heal Your Hunger, I practice. Okay, I've got to. And the reason why I teach it is because it comes from my personal experience as well. But I'm so grateful for the support. I'm so grateful for those of you who have reached out to me. So many people have reached out with condolences and sweet words on Instagram and by email. in my programs, my beautiful clients who have been so supportive. So thank you, all of you. I appreciate that. And yeah, and there's hope. Life is always going to be life. So setting ourselves up for success by developing new tools to cope with life is the best possible way that we can heal from emotional eating and have amazing lives and live in reality, without escaping with food. So I want that for you. Reach out if you want to learn how to go through the process that I'm talking about, how to not having somebody die, by the way, but the process of healing that will prepare you for any of life's challenges so you can move through it gracefully without stuffing it with food, because that just puts you on that roller coaster ride. So reach out if you want support. Let's have a talk. And I love you so much. And thanks for listening. Please put it in the comments, anything. We'd love to hear you. I'd love to see you in the Secret Sauce group. Sending you so much love. Mwah. Bye-bye.
If you enjoyed this podcast and want to get free support, insider health info, exclusive invites to events, and more, visit healyourhunger.com.